It is time to engage. Welcome to episode 211 of Discovery, which it just so happens to be also, from a couple of weeks ago, episode 211 of the Orville. So we're gonna not only talk about Perpetual Infinity from Discovery, but we're gonna also consider these episodes have gotten us to the same part in each season of the Orville and Discovery. So we're gonna talk a little bit about how we feel about the season so far, and it's like the first chance we've got to really compare the two of them this far through the storytelling. But first, let's dive into Discovery. I'd like to talk about the fact that there aren't a lot of episodes of Star Trek to compare this to, but killer robots from the future beating people up has a similar... I'm trying to think of a time where I saw like a movie maybe about that kind of... It's Terminator. It's Star Trek Terminator, and I'm kind of in for it. I'm not minding Star Trek Terminator. It took a while to get here, but you know, from Star Trek RoboCop, it took a nice turn into Star Trek Terminator. Vanya, how are you feeling about Leland's eye drops gone bad, making him into some kind of Borg-ish type drone thing?
As you know, I've said many times before, I'm like a Battlestar fan. I'm definitely a Terminator fan. Terminator 2 Judgment Day is the first movie I ever saw twice in the cinema, ever.
Good choice.
But I feel like Leland is kind of the perfect character for it to happen to. Like, you wanted him to have, like, more, because he's there all the time, and he was just kind of anchorish.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But now, he actually has something to do, and you don't really want to do that to, like, another character, and then we have to mourn for that character. You know what I mean? At least we know more about the other characters, so it's good to put it on him, because, we want Michelle Yeoh to beat him anyway. Yes. And so I'm down for, anything, like, cyborgish. It creeps me out. I love that. That feeling of him being a robot. And I think he's doing better as a robot.
He's much more interesting.
He's such a more interesting character now. So I don't hate it.
Sonia, what are your thoughts on Robo Leland?
Like I said, I find him much more compelling now, and I think the fact that he was so different, as you were saying, Vanya, he was a good character to choose, Leland, because he was not this commanding. He was not this aggressive, and so seeing the contrast has been fun, especially because we want Giorgio to kick his ass now.
Yeah.
The new Leland, and she will.
Yes. Now, let's talk a bit about Burnham's mom. She seems to actually be Burnham's mom, not just Burnham from the future.
Oh, that was I still thought about it a lot.
As it was happening, I was like, could still be. Could still be. But yeah, I think it was really lovely to get to see a fantastic actor from The Wire. And there was this one scene that just felt like Crouching Wire, Hidden Dragon, where we had the two moms of Michael having that beautiful conversation, getting Giorgio to talk with Dr. Burnham was fascinating. What did you think about what seems to be our only episode ever with Michael Burnham's mom?
Yeah, I remember I said last week that I thought they kind of look similar.
They did, yeah.
They have a similar, like their build, like their height even. So it was kind of nice to see that mirror effect. I mean, she's from the mirror universe. That's pretty cool. And they both really excelled, I think, in that scene. I mean, I thought it was really strong stuff. I thought the dialogue was, edgy enough for both of them, too. I liked that we see, Burnham's mom. You can almost see what Burnham could become. Mm-hmm. You can see that she could become, kind of this, very cunning kind of person. And she knew. She said, "Are you going to try and kill me?" She didn't even wait. Mm-hmm. And I love that. that she was just like, "Philippa, are you going to try and kill me?" She knows her enough. Mm-hmm. And that they could still have a conversation after that I thought it was really neat.
Well, it's interesting that out of the three moms that Michael has, the one that lives on Vulcan is the squishiest one.
Nurturing.
Yeah, because it's Biomom is hard and cold and running a horrible gamut.
I love
and then Mirror Universe Mom is objectively a dick. And then it's really only Amanda that has any nurturing for her at all until we had that crack in Dr. Burnham when she finally emoted.
Yeah.
And Sonia, how did it feel for you when you got to see like Dr. Burnham and Michael Burnham have that emotional connection?
It was very impactful in certain moments, but because Michael's mom had to become very hard, right, as you said. And there was one moment I thought that the dialogue throughout this episode was inconsistent, but there were a couple of moments when they were talking that were really moving. And I like it when her mother said to her that she was a ghost to her. I don't know if she used those words. She used them with somebody else. But essentially that's what she was saying, because she had to let her go. She had to watch her daughter die so many times. And that she told her that, but she told her that to also let her know she was going to keep trying to save her. I thought that was a beautiful moment. And I thought her dialogue was stronger than I thought they gave her better dialogue than they gave Michael. But then again, they often give Michael this really weepy kind of this emotional, sentimental stuff that doesn't necessarily fit with the Michael I want to see, or it's not the Michael that we see when she's with Giorgio, and you know, when she's kicking butt, crouching tiger and dragon. So, and I enjoyed those scenes, especially that moment when she had to be really honest with Michael, and Michael had to take that in, right? You know, it was very conflicting.
Now, do we think she's gone, or do we think there's going to be some kind of return of this Red Angel character? Because so far, this black outfit that she has doesn't look anything like the Silver Angel that we saw in the first few appearances.
Well, but the outfit, Red Angel and they went separately, right? Now, maybe I missed something, but did they talk about how they're going to come back together, those two things?
Nope, I don't think they're supposed to. I think the idea is that they were going to keep the mother by using the transporter to beam her into our time natively, which sounds like technobabble that is beyond anything like reasonable for Star Trek.
Yeah.
And then they were going to program the Red Angel suit to go off it to the end of the universe, the heat death of the universe, that the AI could try to chase it but never find it.
That's it. I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, and so it seems like a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But everyone was like, no, this is going to work. This is totally going to work. Don't worry, it'll work. And then it did not work.
That's what I liked about Burnham's mom, is that she's very clear about what her mission is, and she was hardline about it. She was like, great, you put that in the suit so that I can just, like, guard it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, so that I can be the guardian of this. Like, that's excellent. You know what I mean? But we have to get rid of this crap. You know, like, and so like she really, it's like they understood it, but they were all just kind of like they were like, get rid of the Sphere Archive light, and she was like, no. She was like a hard ass about it.
Yeah, the get rid of the sphere and I'm the sacrifice.
And
makes
you can
sense to her.
see actually where Burnham gets her like martyrdom complex from, because she was like, no, I'm just going to take this on. Don't worry about it. I got this. You guys are all dead to me. Like, watch you die over and over.
You're ghosts.
I got this. I'm going to live the rest of my existence making sure that, you know, you guys can actually have a fulfilling life. I mean, she said some haunting things. Like, when she talked to Pike, I was like,
you wouldn't want to hear it.
Yeah, she's like, it's basically, it doesn't end well for you. But I just, but I really, really thought, I liked that maybe that's with all of Burnham's martyrdom that she takes on, she clearly got that from her mom.
Yeah.
And then maybe, you know, the weepiness that you're talking about, maybe that actually will change into that person, you know, into the Dr. Burnham. Like, it will be like she'll be able to manage that martyrdom around something real, you know.
Well, Michael is coming to understand that she's taken on responsibility and ownership of problems that are not hers to take on, and that maybe, you know, her mom didn't. That's right, Spock and their family troubles, and so and the Klingon War. I think Michael's coming to understand it, possibly in a way her mom didn't, and it'll be interesting to see how she evolves from this. Right, this is a major upset in her life.
Yeah.
You know, and what about the dad? Is the dad alive? I just feel like
Poor forgotten dad.
He's
got one scene. I'm gonna make some pancakes, and then that's it.
I just
He's adorable.
Yeah, he's great.
I just think it's a big deal that her mother was there again after when she thought she was dead 20 years later, and then she wasn't anymore so quickly. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it affects Michael, right? But that's the thing. There's kind of a lot happening, right? it's inevitable because it's serialized, right? And
But it's only so serialized. It's serialized like Buffy the Vampire Slayer was serialized, which is like, here's our big bad for the season. We're not thinking any further ahead than that, which is what they did in the 90s. And Star Trek just caught up to the 90s with their serialized storytelling. So it might take a while to get to like Game of Thrones. We had this plan from the beginning, and it's certainly going to take a while before they get to Battlestar Galactica. We have a vague idea of where we're going. And they're not even touching Straczynski, Babylon 5. We have a gorgeous plan that we are shooting scenes now for something we're going to use in 2 seasons. Like, that is not where Star Trek is at right now. They're Buffy the Vampire Slayer serial. And I feel like we're getting information from the Red Angel. Dr. Burnham said, Philippa, you're going to be nice. And then said, Pike, you're not going to like how it ends. We already know what happens to Pike, so that bit of foreshadowing isn't really foreshadowing for the audience. But I'm curious, what do you guys think about this prediction / future telling of Philippa doing some like self-sacrificing? Do we think the writers are thinking seasons ahead? Because I kind of thought it was about to happen in that episode.
Yes,
and
it looked like it, right?
Yeah,
it looked
but
like it
didn't really happen in that episode. Is it going to be something we see this season? Is Philippa going to die?
Is that, wow, that's quite a sacrifice, man.
Right?
This season?
Yeah.
She can't, right? Because
She's got a spinoff, yeah. But I mean, there's also a 4th Star Trek
I
movie
feel like
if you want
what
to
they're
believe
trying
that.
to do right now is build up, like each episode she does something good. So what they're trying to do is, if we're going to have a protagonist, you know, on a show, we got to let people like her. You know what I mean? So we're going to throw as many possibilities at her to be good without her just turning around one day and like with a cake.
And so
like,
is it like an argument for nature versus nurture, that because she's in this universe that isn't cutthroat and horrible, she's becoming a better person even though she's working for Section 31?
Yeah, like I think she'll find her place, you know, take on some of the morals of this, you know, universe, and leave some of that other stuff before. I don't think she'll ever get rid of her like cunning streak.
I hope she doesn't. Because
that would be ridiculous.
It's so valuable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's
right.
Great to
especially
watch.
since it's going to be about Section 31. But I do think that she will be better than she. Yeah, I think in her environment.
In Star Trek, at least I remember that we the captains, right, or the teams that were, you know, headlining each show, they always came upon somebody who was in some dangerous, you know, rogue part of the galaxy, who was who had to be cunning, but who still had a kind of a moral compass that was not, you know, as pure as Star Trek, but still a moral compass that we could relate to, that we would like.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like Rolaren as an example, like someone who's like just a bit off the moral compass, but we can bring her in and she makes for interesting stories.
I mean, if Kira could be a rebel,
yes,
like in a similar way, and then become, you know, like the second officer who's like very respected, you know, I think it's a similar kind of thing. And then you could actually argue that this universe's Giorgio would be alive if she had some of the cunning that the Terran Giorgio had, you know?
Yeah,
like,
and I find it alarming that there hasn't been a moment where Ash and Giorgio, who have a history that Giorgio's not familiar with, Ash ate her counterpart. Ash ate Giorgio. So, like,
they both have questionable eating things. Maybe it's something they just don't want to talk about.
Yeah, this one eats Saru, that one eats you.
Oh, that was terrible. That was one of the worst scenes from season 1.
Yeah, that was problematic.
Oh, Tyler. Oh, yeah, I
forgot about Tyler in this episode.
Yeah, who just, like, kind of realized things were a bit off his moral compass and didn't really notice anything up about Leland, I don't think. He was just like, oh, yeah, I guess I'll do that thing. And then when he says I'm not going to do it, and Leland, that flip switches when he realizes I will no longer be able to convince this person. Great job, Ash. Keep up the good work. And ends the conversation. Like, wow, your humanity is...
Computer.
You picked the wrong human if you're trying to get humanity from Leland. Because there hasn't been a lot of that in him. So I thought that was interesting. And I love that it was Giorgio that got to the bottom of it when she heard that same quote about the larger mission. And she's like, oh, crap.
I did like that a lot. Because when she said, I was like, wait a second. And then she saw it. Like, it was just like... but only like a second apart, and I really like that. I'm not too concerned about, like, you know, Tyler got stabbed, And honestly,
Oh yeah, shit.
He did.
Yeah, and he's like in
When
rough
he's got
shape.
away.
But then I thought, he's a Klingon, and maybe he, like inside, does he have those redundancies like that
Maybe.
other Klingons have?
Yeah,
Still?
double
He
everything,
Even though he
right?
looks like
Double everything.
us.
I don't know. I
You
feel like he
know?
wouldn't have passed. Well, maybe. That's a good question.
He
How
wouldn't
much?
have passed the test.
Yeah,
right? The medical test.
anatomical
Oh, right,
test.
right.
But
Oh, yeah. So
but
maybe he doesn't have that?
Yeah, maybe not. He might just be screwed.
But I've always found Ash to be problematic. He just continues to be problematic. I mean, I think they're obviously using him as a tool to
Yeah,
get
but he's
to,
hot.
to,
You know, like I'm
to
not.
move the storyline
That's his
That's
mission.
his role.
Yeah.
Because
Hotness.
we got three.
You
this
got
season.
Pike.
Oh, it's just,
You got
it's,
Spec.
it's overflowing.
Yeah. There's a lot of eye candy of dudes on
It's our
this
time.
show.
It's our time.
Sorry,
And
it's
now that
for us.
Ariam is back on the bridge without her makeup, she's just the obligatory close-up shot of the blonde girl
Yeah.
in every episode. Did you guys notice that in
Yes.
this thing? Where
Yes.
she's just like,
Yeah.
she's not doing anything, she doesn't say anything, she has nothing to add.
I just
But they
feel like-
need to like cut to her to remind you around this football field of a bridge.
Yeah.
Remember, there's this blonde girl
She
here now.
doesn't even need to be there. I mean, like we have Oo and you
Yeah,
know,
what's she doing?
like
anyway?
they all have jobs and we know what their jobs are. You know what I mean? Like why don't we?
Yeah, fly the ship, shoot the phasers.
And
What else is
is
there?
it me or is Tilly as comic relief being used as a little ineffectively or irritating?
You weren't interested in finding out what her most favorite love?
Oh,
physics was?
I actually was interested in that.
I was interested in that. I just think that.
I think we'll find out.
Yeah, I hope we do. I just most of the time I really like the way they use her character and her comedic skills and just her funny. But every once in a while, but then again, nothing's perfect.
Were you kind of like,
I'm like,
need a break?
I need a break, or that wasn't really the
Well,
best
this
place
episode
to do
was
it. Like,
all about cutting off Tilly. It was like,
Yeah.
to be continued, Tilly.
Yeah.
And like, she's just getting like constantly wanting to talk more. She's like, hey, okay, yeah, I guess I'm not that important to this.
this episode.
Yeah, basically. So let's talk about the fact that we do have some sort of like future robot villain, and compare that to Star Trek stories that have played with time travel and have given us future robot villains. Because I mean, I've got
Give us a couple.
the episode of Enterprise where the Borg show up and commandeer. They're basically just ice zombies, and no one gives them a name for why they're robot
Yeah.
ice zombies.
Yeah.
And then they commandeer a ship and go off and send a
Yeah.
message to the Borg deep into the Delta Quadrant, and then get destroyed.
Right.
And the whole episode never discusses the Borg, and apparently that's the reason the Borg
Right.
were coming to the Alpha Quadrant, which was like this charming little bit of retcon that was not necessary.
Sure.
But really what I'm thinking of is First Contact, I guess.
Yes.
That's like the best example of time-traveling future robot villain that needs human bodies.
Right.
And I mean, that's like the only
only
thing I can
comparison.
really think of.
And then I was thinking, like, remember me, you know, when Dr. Crush is in the bubble, and then, you know, it's not a time thing, but they have to figure out how to get her out. She's, like, in a bubble, kind of like Dr. Burnham's in a bubble, and then instead of losing her at the end, you know, Wesley's able to bring her back. And she talks about loss in the episode a lot. You know, when everybody's disappearing, and it's like when I cry every time I see the episode. Anyway, but it's the only mother, the mother, a son who's a scientist, like Burnham's a scientist, and
Well, it does make me think a little bit of the lineage of Cisco, and the fact
Yeah, I
that
thought
he
about
and
that
his
too.
mother are like sort of for the entirety of the show just too separate to have a real relationship. And at the end of DS9, I mean, spoiler alert, I guess, when he goes back to the wormhole. I mean, you're watching a Star Trek. Like, this is not a spoiler, right? Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
we're spoiling Discovery that
Can I
happened
just
like
say-
2 days ago.
I hated that ending. I did
Oh,
not
of-
like
of-
of
DS9?
DS9?
Yes,
Oh.
I'm sorry, that ending broke my heart, and I want.
So you hated it, broke your heart, and you hated it.
Yes.
Oh.
It didn't just break your heart and you loved it.
No,
Because you could have it break your heart and
Yeah,
be like,
and
that was
yes,
so
that's
awesome.
right. No,
Yeah.
it wasn't awesome for me. I was very upset, and so was he. So was Avery Brooks.
Yeah?
He was upset that it ended.
He could come back anytime. He's half God. He'll be fine.
Yeah, true.
I wish.
Right?
Yeah, but I like that comparison too.
Yes.
Yeah, and she is kind of like Dr. Burnham's kind of like a god.
She has this power
She's the
over
closest
time.
thing to
To
a
a
god.
martyr, that's
in,
right,
in a
yeah.
way that, her experience of time and the idea of the wormhole aliens the prophets don't experience time in a linear way either. And so
Yes.
there's like a similar, I don't understand the way you, my child, feel about time because I'm so divorced from it now.
Right.
So there was a bit of that going on for me as well.
I did like they had a lot of references, like philosophy references and Shakespeare references.
That didn't work.
Did
you
I
like
thought,
it?
Yeah, I thought so. Well, I thought, well, you know, Spock said 2 of them at least. He said the one with about water, about it being this thing that it can go through mountains by Lao, right? And I thought that was great because so many women are in charge of how this is going to work, and you know, we're seen as the softer sex, you know, and we're the ones who are in charge. We're the ones who are going to like carve that way through, which I thought was a really great comparison. And I did like the Hamlet one too because I thought she is like a ghost. She talks about ghosts. Ghosts are like Hamlet's the ghost story, right? Like, and other than the Scottish play, but like it's I like that she talked about ghosts and he referenced that, you know, and about time and how it works with somebody who's like separated from it, and like then you have to take on a responsibility, which is what Hamlet's talking about because he doesn't want to take on the responsibility of like when his father's gone, when she's going to lose her mom. So I thought those references were good.
And it's nice that Spock's doing some good reading for a dyslexic Vulcan.
Yeah,
I really
love
like that.
I really love that.
Yeah.
You know, I just my sister's dyslexic, and I was like, oh, you know, that would have been awesome for her to see when she was like a kid because she's a Star Trek fan. But yeah.
But yeah, I think kids watching this, I mean, I don't
how
know if
they
a show
watch
with this
it.
much body, much
Yeah.
like body horror and gore
it's
is
very
for kids
violent.
who are going to be like, Spock is dyslexic just like me.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of that's going to go on.
They might not get to that.
Yeah, but it did feel great that we had this bit of retcon to Spock, that he had dyslexia. That's cool.
That there's strength in in it.
And that it's like him being half human, half Vulcan, and have a dyslexia makes him like this magical only thing that could parse the information that Dr. Burnham was trying to give. Yeah. And that was really cool.
She also referenced another time reference. It was like Einstein reference about the observer. Time is you know, it's about relativity. Yeah. And she was saying like I guess like the whole entire philosophy is that it's like the inertia. Like I think Einstein called it the inertial observer, where like whoever's there, that's how time is perceived.
Yes.
So
that's
they're all there, but she doesn't have that, so it doesn't matter, like what you were talking about before. And so I feel like all those things, they don't always fall in the right spot in Discovery, but they obviously are thinking about these things. Like you're bringing up like 2 physicists and a philosopher in one episode.
Yeah, like they're going hard into the fact that that Discovery has not been very good at being a philosophy show couched in sci-fi.
Yeah.
And they like try to make up hard in this episode.
Like Shakespeare, Einstein, wow, like you know what I mean? Like that's heavy stuff.
Yeah, and it's dense and coming fast and hard.
Yeah.
Now we've been talking a lot about a show with you know, an advanced space-faring, vicious AI that is trying to wipe out all humanity. I was wondering if we want to talk about a show with an advanced space-faring AI that's trying to wipe out all of humanity and talk about the Orville. Because these shows are dealing with the same thing again.
They're on track again.
It's like, fascinating.
Do they have the same writers' room? Like, are they working side by side and being like,
right?
We'll do the funny.
Yeah.
You know
we'll do the funny version of that. But, yeah, you better do that one serious, though. Yeah. How are you feeling now that we're 11 episodes into both shows and we've seen what they've done with their season 2? How are we feeling about their tone, about their consistency, about their overall trekkiness? Vanya?
Me?
Yeah, how are you feeling?
I get something different from both of them. I don't, sometimes I have to decide, you know, which one I'm going to watch first. And I think, you know, I'm going to watch Orville second because I feel like that might be, jollier. You know what I mean? And I want to have, a cleansing, you know, in the second. But sometimes I'm like, no, I just want to, I want to watch Orville and be like, okay, yeah, I get that. Yeah, and then move on to maybe a heavier thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like even with their flaws, both shows kind of they've been consistent in the fact of their tone. Like, for me anyway, regardless of the flaws of their episodes, their tone is fairly consistent. I'd say Discovery is actually probably more consistent, because sometimes, or the Orville is like, oh, are we just going back to the comedy thing full on, or are we, really just gonna be like a drama with more comedy?
Yeah.
So but I feel like they're trying to balance it out, and they've done a really good job since last season. So I would say that they're pretty good with like their tone. I
feel like the gravitational pull of Star Trekness is bringing both shows closer to what Star Trek is, because Discovery started. Discovery was made by people who were joking out loud and laughing at the fact that they had never watched an episode of Star Trek. Those are the people that made the pilot for Discovery. So if you ever want to know why that pilot is true and utter garbage, that would be why. True and utter garbage, Star Trek. I shouldn't say true and utter garbage television. I could. But the thing about the Orville is they've sort of been going from that goofy place and getting pulled into Trekness. And I feel like if they both met in the middle, they'd be making TNG.
Yes.
They're finding their way towards that.
The halfway point between the brightness
of both worlds.
It's like the best of both worlds. And I've got to say, it is making both shows more enjoyable for me. I have enjoyed Discovery and this second season so far way more than last season. And I've enjoyed the Orville and second season way more than last season. And I think that's because they're both getting trekkier. What about you, Sonia?
I agree with what you said. So every week when the weeks when the two shows are up, I find myself a little anxious about Discovery, because I'm much more invested in Discovery this year than I was last year, and I'm enjoying it a lot more. I look forward to seeing characters and certain storylines, right? Because it may be a sort of an old-fashioned kind of serialization, Matt, or one that's not contemporary, but it still is a serialization. You still every week one or two storylines get moved forward, and so I feel a little anxious, like, are they going to do it? How am I going to feel about it? What's going to happen with those two people, or how's that going to work out? But with the Orville, I don't feel that way. Obviously, it's very episodic, even though things carry through. So with the Orville, I always go to it fresh. I'm like, okay, let's see what the Orville has to give me.
How bad could it possibly be?
Yeah, I mean, oh God, I have to turn down the brightness on my laptop because can't stand their sets.
No, it's just because your eyes are slowly adapting to the mirror universe of Discovery.
Yeah.
And you're used to the darkness.
Or if you watch an episode of Discovery before Orville, you're going to be blind.
Yeah.
It's just it's so dark, so bright.
And that's the order I always watch it in, because Discovery has left me so sad and pissed off at its terrible, terrible work in the past.
Yeah.
And the Orville has only made me go like, that was dumb. And so, as a result, I always watch the Orville second. So I'm guaranteed to be left with something less disappointing than Discovery. Yeah. But these last, I gotta say, I didn't mind this particular week because this episode didn't make me think it was so awful or it was so poorly done that I needed to go watch an episode of the Orville. Though I could have. It's nice to have them on demand like that.
Yeah, and it's I feel like, actually, they're making each other better by competing.
I'm so glad they're both on the air at the same time, because
exactly.
You're right. If it was just Discovery on the air, they would be able to continue down their confused tone. Is this episode for kids, or is this episode going to have a bunch of bums and gore in it, or are we going to drop some F-bombs in this episode? It's like Discovery's everywhere. And I feel like this season of the Orville has been truly modern network television, which is to say that you can come to any episode and get a kick out of it, and it's 90% going to make sense, and then there's just that 10% through line that makes everything snap together into a season with a watching order, with a viewing order that will satisfy you if you're there for all of it. And that's modern network television. Modern digital storytelling, because for all intents and purposes, Discovery's a web series, like House of Cards, or Daredevil.
Yes.
Or I'm trying to pick someone other than Netflix. Like Men in the High Castle. Or, come on, somebody else. Diversify. Monoculture. There's like how many places? The Preacher. There you go.
I like that one.
And so they're like these cable-y, like binge it, get in, and you can watch all 15 hours in a row. That's what Discovery's making, but they're drop feeding it to us once a week.
Yeah, I almost feel like, as you're saying that, we always come back to this. Maybe we should be able to binge it, and maybe it would be better if you could binge it. You know what I mean?
That's CBS All Access trying to get 15 weeks worth of subscriptions out of us, because they know we would binge this in a month. A single month subscription would do the job.
Yeah.
And that's why they want to put out the Picard show and the Giorgio show, because then there's 45 weeks worth of television, even though that's only 45 hours. You could binge that in a month easy.
Yes.
So I think we're in an interesting place with the demands of CBS All Access being such a financial, old-school network need, even though the delivery system is a brand new, over-the-top streaming service.
Yeah, they're trying to fit the old school. It's so strange because they're trying to fit
Square peg, round hole.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to fit an old school idea into the new school idea, but also then give us a new school way of storytelling, but not give it to us in the new school way. Like
it's a bit like the way they made Discovery, where it's like, let's take this idea from the 60s and make a brand new version of it that will feel nothing like it. And I think Brian Fuller wanted it to feel like the 60s, and that's why he was fired.
And I think he also wanted everybody here to not be here anymore.
Yes,
it is so
apparent in what we're watching now, as they've killed off Ariam because this actress does not want to have 7 years of that makeup, and they've brought that actress back without it. And the fact that they're retconning to give us more information about Burnham's parents, because now they better be important, because we got 7 years of this character. And I'm feeling like they're desperately trying to make a long story out of Burnham, and she was designed to have a 10-episode story.
Yeah.
That's what Fuller wrote.
And we talked about this even last season. Remember how we thought that it was, despite how how strong the actress is, and despite how much we like the character, that centering a Star Trek show around one character is a problem. It's actually it's not enough for us.
Well, because we're so used to we're gonna watch a Riker episode, we're gonna watch a Deanna episode, and then now it's like I almost feel like it's not like other shows don't have this, because they're, if you watch Breaking Bad, it's like Walter White. You watch Mad Men, it's all about Don Draper. However, as Star Trek fans, we're not really. That's a new education.
Yeah. And we're waiting for our Detmer episode.
Yeah, it's
to
like
come up.
I'm kind of miss Stamets. Like, geez, if he's not, it's like he's always just put into the machine and do it should just get people to jump, but he's not like a real, fully realized character. And so I just feel like because we're not used to that too, all the characters seem to me, for Star Trek, obsessed with one person.
Yes.
I was like, everyone's seeming a little unhealthy about Michael.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, I love Michael so much.
It's like if everybody had that opinion of Commander LaForge, you'd be like, or if everybody thought that way about Commander Troy, you'd be like,
they're like, they're all constantly talking about her, and everything hinges on her, and they're like, hey, Michael. Like, if you really watch it from that point of view, it's
a bit weird.
It's a little weird, especially as Star Trek, because we're used to seeing all the characters, and that's why it's hard for us to get attached to the characters too.
Yes.
Because they don't really have as much play as she does. And that's why it was supposed to be one season of her, that's why you could do it about a second officer, you know what I mean? Had to have kind of second officer be lead. And then, I honestly, it was very strange. I was really way more broken up about Dr. Burnham leaving than Ariam. And Ariam had been there more episodes. But when Dr. Burnham was, sucked away, I was like, ooh, that's a bummer. You know what I mean?
It does. I think the actor doing the performance makes a huge difference.
Right.
When
She's
you've got,
a really great actor.
Yeah, and
When you can see her face,
you can see her face. She is a veteran. She is very good at what she does.
Oh,
That's true.
And then when you've got like prosthetics badly stuck to a person who you have no connection to from other media, like
and
they're not famous actors. They're not people who have done this work before.
And when you don't have to kind of fabricate a life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they did flashbacks in this, but I felt like they made the flashbacks made sense for the character, and then they didn't have to fabricate us having a connection with her, and they just had really good scenes. Like she had a really great scene with Pike. She had a great scenes with, Michael and with Giorgio. So it's like those like nailed it, and yeah, she's a great actor. So those were like, I'm just gonna turn those scenes out, and then I was like, oh no, Michael's mom, way more.
Well, and it's interesting because in one of those flashbacks, one of those mission logs, which she conveniently has drones filming her so that we can watch it in a cinematic way, instead of just like her little camera the whole time.
Yeah.
It was interesting that she, in one throwaway line, she's like, "Oh, I'm 950 years in the future," which happens to be when Calypso, the short trek, happens.
Oh.
And at that point, there's one human that we ever see in that entire short trek. And it's 1,000 years in the future, and we've got a sentient version of Discovery. And so it begs the question, if Discovery became sentient, is that Control, and is Control lonely, and is Control like, oh, a human, maybe I shouldn't have killed them all, look how nice this is, and fell in love with a human? Or is that like Discovery escaping Control, wiping everything out, even though all the humans died, and then Discovery finally gets a person for the first time? It's I assume it's connected in some way, though I would be giving Discovery's writing team a lot of credit to say that it's connected in anything more than a thematic way, because that team has been fired since that short trek was made.
Well, now that you've said that, Matt, they're just going to take that and run with it.
What have I done?
Now it's out there. Not getting
Speaking of the writing and the science, I find that sometimes they're still explaining things to us they don't need to explain to us, that they can just show us visually. So when Stamets says, if we shoot these three things, please don't ask me for the technical terms.
No, I think all he said was, we shoot these three things. It was
The
really,
discs.
it was some of the most remarkably stupid sounding technobabble they've had.
But we didn't even need to hear that, Matt. Do you know what I mean? There's too much talk about things that aren't necessary. We knew what those three things were because we saw them. We saw them contain the Red Angel. We saw them put the
Stamets could have just gone
pew,
pew, pew.
They could have just done it without telling us, and that would have been more elegant. That would have been more enjoyable. I feel it's so it's so awkward, and their mouths are full of so much explanatory dialogue that I'm finding it like I was bored.
If I had to say Time Crystal with a straight face, I'd have that same problem.
Well, I actually disagree in that part because I do. No, it's the other places. Like when they're doing like a circle talk and they're all, that is when I find it to be like quite lagging. But when Stamets did it, I'm like, I feel like he had to say it because they couldn't take that one away from Michael again. Like the last time she was like having an emotional breakdown and she should be doing something to like, move things forward. She's like wrapped up in that person again. So she had to have some agency in taking like responsibility for it. So he did have to say, we have to do this. He couldn't just be like, bam, 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 you know what I mean? He had to say, and he didn't really explain much. He was just like, we have to get rid of these to give her a shot. You know what I mean? And that's the only time where I was like, yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Because I find that they don't explain things that we need to have explained. You know what I mean? So if they didn't explain it in that moment, I think we would have been complaining that they
I don't know if we would have. I think it would have been very clear to us that in order to achieve what they had to achieve, they had to destroy those things.
Yeah, but then you have to tell if she's having like
they would have had to do it a different way. I think it was just a little clunky. I found it clunky.
I think clunky is definitely a word for this episode because there was a moment where I am 100% sure I heard Spock say, "I like science."
Yes. Yeah, he did. No, he said. No. Yeah,
yes,
he said.
I like science.
No, see,
like
I'm sorry.
a baby.
Can we talk about Can we talk about Spock in this? Because I think that up until now, in the few episodes where he has spoken, Spock has actually been able to show affection and be endearing without being sentimental and without reacting to Michael in a certain way. And so I found that the way he reacted to this was disappointing. I'm like, no, I don't want Spock to go that way. Spock can be a little bit, you know,
surly.
He can be he can be like that. He can be a little bit aggressive and still show great affection and still be very endearing.
I feel like it sounded like the writers, not like Spock. It didn't sound like Spock, the character we know. It sounded like the writers because they talked about liking math and liking science. I feel like, who are you trying to convince? You don't have to convince Star Trek fans to like science and math. I mean, I'm terrible at both those things. But I mean, fictitious science and math.
Right. I'm great at... My warp fields are very well calculated.
Know what I mean? But you don't have to convince Star Trek fans of that. Right? So, do you have problems liking those things? That's the way it feels. Like, it feels like the writers are like, we're not nerds. I'm like, but we're all nerds. That's why we're here watching Star Trek.
We're here to be nerds.
We want to be nerds. Like, we're not embarrassed. What high school are you in currently in the writing room that is like, I like science, you know what I mean? Like me, you know, like...
It reminded me of that scene in Harry Potter. In Harry Potter, in number 4, when he says, I love magic. I'm like, yes, Harry.
Clearly.
And that worked for him. He was a kid. He was a kid.
He didn't know he had magic.
That's right. And he realized he was still learning about his world. And Spock is a freaking lieutenant. He's Spock.
Harry Potter had a lot to lose from magic, right? Yeah. He lost a lot because of magic. So I can understand him finally being like, you know, but I actually like it. Yeah. But, you know, like, focus don't need to convince us that they like science. Ooh. So I agree with you on that. Even though we don't agree about that scene, I do agree that there are times where they're talking, and I'm like, yeah, I don't need to know all that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Cut to the chase. But then the times when I'm like, whoa, how's that going to happen? We need some explanation there. Mm-hmm. Where did that crystal come from?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
maybe then the writers and directors aren't working well together. Like, can't a director knows how to visually convey something that doesn't need to be spoken.
Well, in television it's a bit complicated because you generally don't hire talented film directors. You hire traffic cops. You hire people that can keep you on time and make a certain number of pages a day. It's a very different skill. If you watch a TV actor make a feature film, it tends to be kind of soulless. In fact, I'm thinking right now of Terminator Genesis. That is a film made by a Game of Thrones director. So, like, one of the best directors of television. He also did the shittiest Thor movie. This guy is not good at making movies. He's good at making a day. He's good at staying on time. He's good at telling this part of the story. But
that's why people like Frakes too, because it's like about pace. It's about pacing more than.
And he's great at that.
Yeah. And then, but in television, the writer's king. Right?
Yeah, like the lead writer, the showrunner, is the person who tells the director pretty much how to do their job because they have built the team around the director, like the cinematographers and the basically the on-set producers are there to make everything be a certain way.
Then showrunners should all be film directors.
That'd be neat.
Oh man.
I mean, TV would take a lot longer to make, but it's true.
No, I don't think so. I think
there's some directors that do not know how to write.
Well, J.J. Abrams is a great example.
No, I'm sorry, James Cameron is like a great vision. Oh, not you.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about James Cameron.
That's hilarious. It's like, just in my heart, because I write and direct movies too. So
no, I'm saying James Cameron is not the best. Like he's not a great dialogue writer. He is a great visionary and he's a great director, like cinematic director in that thing. But writing, like if he were going to write a show,
but do showrunners write? No, showrunners.
Yes, showrunners are often coming from writers' rooms. So they work their way through being writers, and then they begin to communicate with the networks, and then they become the person in charge of the show. But J.J. Abrams is a neat example because he directs movies, and he writes, and he also showruns. So I would say people who are good directors and good writers make great showrunners. For
sure.
But, you know, Kurtzman is not
Sorry,
that.
We're talking about J.J. Abrams, though. He drops the ball all the time at the last. Him as a third act, end of series guy. He's just gone. he's like, oh, I'm done with this.
Yeah, but we
I'm
can't
ran out of steam.
We can't let Kurtzman and Lindelof off the hook for those ones.
Yeah, that's
because,
true.
You know,
That's true.
it is a collaborative effort,
Sure.
film and television making. Now,
Okay.
I'd like to get into whether this episode trekked it or this episode wrecked it. Sonia,
Okay.
let's hear what you think.
Of course, I'm gonna have to. So I wasn't sure until we had this conversation, and you brought up some points that helped me decide. So they did do. They really are trying to make it a Star Trek show. A show about philosophy. Expressed through science and these relationships. And it seemed like they made a great effort to do that in this episode, and they did some interesting things with it. And I think that, I know the time crystal's not interesting science, but the AI, I think that exploration of AI in any form these days is very interesting to me. I think it's very contemporary, and so I like that both those things happened. And so despite the flaws that continue to me in this, I would say that it trekked it.
Okay. Vanya, did this episode trek it or wreck it for you?
Yeah, I trekked it. I mean, I feel like sometimes you guys are like, yeah, we know, man. But it did. As much as at first I was like, I didn't know. I was reluctant because I was like, it reminds me of nothing like other episodes of Star Trek. However, that's a good thing because I've been dinging the Orville for a couple weeks now for being only exactly like episodes of Star Trek that we've already seen. So to me, yeah, it trekked it is it's original Star Trek, and it's a different way of looking at time. And I feel like they brought in some of the philosophical statements about time, actually anchored even some of the things that I've thought about time in other episodes of Star Trek. Some of the actual dialogue really hit home for me in that way. There are some flaws here and there, but top-notch fighting, from Michelle Yeoh, was really great.
Yeah.
She really knows how to do that. And then I really do think that some of the relationship stuff like Dr. Berman, she's a great character. I really wish we got to see more of that character. And I really think that they really did have a plan. Even if it's convoluted, it was rooted in science. They did talk about what they wanted to do, how they wanted to do to accomplish the goals of the episode. And so, yeah, for me, it's Star Trek.
All right. Well, guys,
You're gonna do that.
it trekked it for me.
Really?
It did. It trekked it for me. It was not great TV.
No, it wasn't. No.
There are so many flaws
it.
with this episode of television. There's so many flaws with the delivery method, with the aspect ratio, with the episode, the tone. There's so many things that made this not great TV, but it did feel more like Star Trek than other episodes of this season.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
It definitely, it really did feel like, I was like, this is a Star Trek episode.
Yeah, if they can get back to the New Eden style, where they're making an episode of Star Trek that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's part of a larger storyline. Maybe make it more than one season if you can think that far ahead.
Yeah.
If you can start making Star Trek modern, this is kind of the way to do it.
Yeah,
just be better at making TV, because that part is a no-brainer. You definitely have to be better at making TV than this. But it's pretty decent Star Trek in my mind.
I feel like it's a little tighter. They stay a lot of more stuff on the ship. You have a little bit of an away mission. It's not we're getting to the ship again. The ship's flying somewhere else. Then we're gonna do another away mission. We're gonna leave the ship again. It wasn't too much of that. It was a little more economic, a little tighter. In
this
that
episode
sense.
felt like a two-parter. The second part of it, a mid-season two-parter.
Yeah.
And it felt like we landed to start this away mission in the previous episode. Then we had a cliffhanger at the end of that one. Then this one got us to the end of this particular away mission. It felt like part 2 of a 2-part Star Trek away mission. And so I'm okay with it. Last week, no. But this week was it sort of pulled this Red Angel thing out of the fire a bit for me.
It had a through line. It picked itself up again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Instead of dropping that stitch. Yeah.
Now the thing that kind of bugs me is that it feels like there are people who don't watch Star Trek making Star Trek. And I think this idea of the Red Angel and this time-traveling, who could it be? It has some relationship to Spock. What's going on? And the fact that it wasn't Spock from V'ger in the motion picture when he's wearing that red and he goes into this incredibly powerful being and becomes the Red Angel, goes through time. Like, I think there's some really... I think the Star Trek fandom is coming up with way better ideas than the writers of Star Trek.
Yeah, they're
and I think that's a
opportunities.
real shame. And I think the reason they're missing those opportunities is because the people who are making it, going back to this complaint we had about, or I guess I had, about episode 1 and 2 of the pilot of this show, is that these people don't know enough about frigging Star Trek.
Yeah,
That's a problem.
I do agree. Even if you don't want to make the Star Trek that you've seen, you can root certain things that are cool in the canon, right? So you can then, and we would be able to tell, right?
Yes.
It's just like what we were talking about in this episode alone. Like, I like science. You don't need to convince us of that. We are on board already. We've already signed up.
And the things we saw in this episode are getting dangerously close to things that exist in Star Trek. If there's a thing that pierces a human, puts little black nanoprobes into it, and is not somehow swung back around to when we destroyed, when the AI destroyed the Borg, we created nanoprobes. Like, if they don't get to that, they are screwing the pooch so hard here, because this is a universe that has 700 hours of storytelling. And if you show us something that's 99% something we've already seen before, it had better be for a reason that it's so similar.
And in terms of making better television, I think that when you have an ensemble cast like this with a lot of compelling characters, that you focusing on just one is not working. It's a problem for us because we're seeing all these characters and we want to see more, and it's not working. And two, making Michael struggle and suffer relentlessly. She never gets any lightness.
It gets boring.
It gets boring, and we don't want to watch that all the time. You know, that's not good television either.
I feel like she can be like the way Picard is, or Cisco. I speak of them more specifically as they are here. They've suffered. They've had trauma, but they're heroes. So they're as often as they're being hurt, they're saving people, and they're trying to help people from their trauma, rather than it always being her getting beat down. She could still be the prime person and be the person that comes to your aid, that saves you.
She could be the B story, or be a part of Detmer's story, or Ariam's story.
Because look at Pike. I mean, I suppose because of the canon, Pike's might not be here next season.
Well,
we don't know.
Next season, Anson Mount is not going to be. He does not have a contract for next season.
So let's assume that means Pike's not going to be around. So Pike is kind of like, you know, a president during the last year of his
He's
or her
a bit
term.
of a lame duck
He's
Pulaski.
a lame duck Pulaski. So that's which is too bad because I really liked that cowboy captain.
Well, I think we're in an interesting place when we consider who will next year's captain be, because Trekkie Girls on Twitter had an interesting statement when they said, you know, Rebecca Romaine's a pretty big actress to have in one scene.
Back either, though.
Well, I wonder.
Really?
I wonder.
Because
it'd be weird to hire...
With Anson Mount, she's not going to be...
I just think it's really weird that they brought Rebecca Romaine in for what has been one episode so far. Unless she's in, like, the next 3, I do not understand why an X-Man had to be... like, you could have gone with anybody for that scene. Rebecca Romaine was not necessary. I'd love to see, number 1, get her 4th pip and be on Discovery for a season.
Or...
I liked her.
Somebody from my list from when before Discovery started, my top 5 list was Angela Bassett. I know she's not on another show right now, but please let that happen. Michelle Yeoh was number 1 and killed her. So you guys
she's back and she gets her own show.
Can Michael become captain soon? She's commander, right?
Nah, that'd get even more boring. We got to keep this Defense Against the Dark Arts thing.
You want that to be
I think the final thing that should happen in season 7 of Discovery should be she gets her 4th pip and off they go. And that would be it.
Well, you know,
it's like Bruce Wayne and Batman in Gotham. The very last thing you see is him standing there, and the show's over.
The only thing they are keeping to, as far as like the anthology thing that Fuller wanted, is that they keep changing captains.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
So it's got that going for it.
I would have loved it if it was like, I don't know if I've said this before, if it was like American Horror Story and it was the same cast and they just Oh yeah.
That'd have been
Cool.
weird, but I would
Trek,
have watched
but it's
that.
so cool.
Yeah, different time periods.
And then we get Lorca back, but he's like a different character.
He gets, he just gets to play like the chief medical officer.
Yeah,
That'd be all right.
He's also hot.
He's
There you
all
go.
hot, and the hotness
Just
continues.
hot guys all over. All right, guys. Well, we are looking forward to talking Discovery next week again. The Orville is apparently off again, so the shows are going to get out of sync again. But we'll get to talk a little bit more, hopefully, about where this story arc is going, because there's only 3 hours left in this.
Yeah.
And so, who will win? Will John Connor escape? I don't, it's hard to say, but we'll find out next week, and see you then.